Treasury bills market witnessed some bearish drive as investors switch interest from newly issued June paper to fund obligations from Wednesday's primary market auction. Analysts at UBA expect continued interest in the secondary market as investors move to fulfill their orders. Kenneth Onuoha, team member, Assets and Liabilities at UBA, joins me for a market wrap. Thank you so much, Kenneth. Pleasure to have you on the show today.
Good afternoon, Esther. Thank you for having me.
Well, before we look at how market has traded since Monday, bring us up to speed on trading action today. What did you see?
Today has been pretty quiet, of course, because of the liquidity crunch that we are currently in. Not much has exactly happened, but of course activities will continue to persist around the newly issued bills, the 5th of June bill, and that's pretty much what has happened today. And the bond side has been pretty quiet. Nothing exactly has really happened on the bond side as well today. Right,
and for the FX market, I wanted to draw your attention to, you probably also heard the news of the second tranche of 925, over 900 million from the Afrexim Bank to the NNPC, which of course primarily was meant to stabilize the Naira. Is that impacting on the FX market in any way in terms of how this could support the Naira, if that's something that's going to happen?
Of course, that's good news. With volumes of such magnitude, I expect that to naturally boost the FX liquidity depending on how the CBN determines to utilize same. However, it is important to note that the FX market is currently experiencing so much volatility at the moment. At the start of the week, we saw the FX NAFEM closed at about 1,476. However, we saw that this has been increasingly, we've seen an increase in the rates, the stop rates, not the stop rate, sorry. We've seen an increase in NAFEM closing rate, however. As at yesterday, the Naira did strengthen against the USD by 48 basis points to close at 1481.49. This is on the back of increased turnover in the market. So yes, with the inflow coming in from the Afrexim grant or loan, we expect that yes, it would naturally translate into the Naira strengthening against the USD.
Right, but it's interesting to also see that when the first tranche came in, Naira was around 1,000 at the parallel market. I mean, we did see the Naira strengthen, but as soon as the market, absorbed that amount, the Naira is back to close to where it was before at around 1415. But let's leave the FX market. Let's go over to the other segments of the market. I know there was an auction on Wednesday. Bring us up to speed on what we've seen on the yield curve since Monday.
All right, so on the Treasury bill space, Treasury bills has actually experienced the most activity this week. It started off on Tuesday with the OMO auction notice, where we saw the CBN, the DMO offer 250 billion across 3 maturities. We saw the subscription hit about 518.95 billion, and then the total actual allotments for the auction was about 513 billion. Interestingly, we saw the yields or the rates that were actually the stop rates print at 18.74, 19.59, and 20.33% respectively. Now, what we saw there was a decrease in terms of the subscription compared to the last auction. However, we also saw a decrease in the stop rate actually by 1 basis point from the last auction held on the 29th of May. Moving quickly, on Wednesday we saw the NTB auction where 221 billion was put up on offer across 3 maturities. We saw stop rates print at about 16.5, 17.5, and 20.67. What that translated into was a decrease of 1 basis point or 2 basis points from the last stop of 20.69. Subscription levels were about 713 billion, and then only 278 billion was actually sold. That's on the T-bill side. On the bond side, again, it traded really on a tepid note. We saw cherry-picking activities across the curve. Essentially, investors have turned attention to the money market instruments with the flurry of activities that happen in T-bill space. But the most important news that happened in the bond space was, of course, the FGN bond, retail savings bond that actually was announced, that's supposed to opened on the 3rd of June, and then was supposed to close out today. Actually, we see that the subscription actual allotments will happen on the 12th of June, and we are expecting an increase in line with the trends. The 2 years and the 3 years are actually printed at 17.414 and 18.414 respectively, respectively. And when, sorry, okay.
No, finish your thought. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay, so when you compare that side by side with what we have seen in the previous months, at the April savings bond auction, we saw amount allotted of about 4.2 billion. That increased to 5.9 billion in May, and so it remains to be seen where the allotments will go at the end of today. Right.
Okay. Let's wrap this up. But what is your forecast for the coming week, trading, especially liquidity levels?
Liquidity levels, I think it will be fair to say that this week we saw a lot of inflows into the system. As opposed to last week, we saw Sukuk coupon bonds payments, coupon payments of 10 billion. We saw remitter inflows coming to the system. We saw swap maturities this week. We also even saw OMO maturity about 37 billion. However, next week we are optimistic that the system liquidity would be better because we have OMO maturity of about 300 billion coming into the system, so it would help stabilize rates as well.
Thank you so much, Kenneth, for talking to us today. We appreciate your time on the show. Have a great weekend. That was Kenneth Onuoha, team member, assets and liabilities at UBA.